This is Buffalo State Data Talk, the podcast where we introduce you to how data is used and explore careers that involve data. In today's episode of Buffalo State Data Talk, Brian talks to Chris Bole, a data scientist for BlueCross BlueShield of Western New York. Chris started his career as an analyst and found his way to a position as a data scientist, where he enjoys anticipating issues and finding solutions for problems which save his company money and make improvements for their clients. Keep listening to hear Chris's advice for what skills he thinks you need to be successful as a data scientist.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Buffalo State Data Talk. I am your host, Brian Barry, and we appreciate you joining us for episode 6. Today, we'll be talking to Christopher Bole, a data scientist at BlueCross BlueShield of Western New York. Thanks for joining us today, Chris.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
So let's begin by having you tell us about what kind of work BlueCross BlueShield of Western New York does.
Well, in the simplest terms, we're a health insurance provider. The more complete answer is that we work with multiple stakeholders, including the government, physicians, hospital systems, and of course our members to improve healthcare delivery, patient outcomes, and enhance the general wellness of our community while maintaining affordable care.
All right. And as a data scientist for BlueCross BlueShield of Western New York, what are your main job responsibilities?
So I'm primarily responsible for supporting new initiatives, ongoing programs, or vetting proposals. These may involve external entities such as a specific neurology practice or a technology vendor for medical wearables. And it always includes one or more of our internal departments such as actuarial, contracting, or medical management.
And now that you walked me through your responsibilities, could you tell me more about what a typical day or week looks like for you?
Much of my time is really broken into 4 main areas. Meetings, where I spend time with key business owners to clearly identify objectives, critical metrics, timelines, deliverables, and the like. Research, which is dominated by reading and is often in unfamiliar subjects. There is actual data collection and analysis. Rarely a perfect roadmap is provided to a data scientist, so we have to have an understanding of our internal data systems. Also possess some ingenuity to identify appropriate external data sources. And then I will use different programming languages to build appropriate data sets, and from there, carry out my analyses. And lastly is building reports that are suitable for the client and the main objective. Sometimes it may be as simple as a list of people or a list of doctors or a list of facilities requiring no further analysis. Often, though, a report can look like a research paper with an executive summary, a background, methods, tables and graphs, complete with findings and discussion and recommendations. And data scientists on my team are also known as innovators, as many other people in the company. So a portion of my time is spent exploring potential opportunities and bringing them to various work groups to review.
All right. Do you manage or work with a team? Do you typically spend your time with the team or more time working independently, or is it more of a balance between the two?
My role is not supervisory, although I've been in that position at other companies. Specifically, I'm on the decision sciences team. While collaboration is the norm, the degree of integration depends on the types of projects. Those people involved with recurring or cyclical activities tend to work closely more often.
So do you have any tips for students on how to network with people or how to build their connections in the industry?
I do. That's a little bit of a tough question for me. because I'm not a big fan of using the electronic universe for connecting with people. I'm sort of an old school guy. I've been around for a while, and I don't feel that having a profile on public sites automatically generates relationships. My bias is more towards face-to-face interaction with people, and as we all know, that's difficult today. That being said, I think getting involved with functional groups is an ideal way to expand a network. For example, I found a Python meetup group here in Buffalo where professionals would get together and share actual business problems and solutions. It was a great way to learn about that specific language, but it also facilitated a connection between people and around a purpose.
Yeah, completely agree. The face-to-face just can't be substituted with anything else. So it sounds like you worked on many interesting topics. What would you say is the favorite part of your job?
Well, there are many. I would say that digging into a subject, actually doing the legwork of researching something, that's one of my favorite activities. When I'm reading on a subject, whether it's something I'm familiar with or something brand new, I know in the back of my mind for a fact that along the way, I'm not only getting basic information to answer what might be simple questions around a business issue, ones that have already been proposed, I'm actually uncovering potential solutions to problems that haven't even been thought of yet. And it's one of the ways that I like to stay ahead of the game.
So, like solving some real-world problems and applying them.
Yes, and actually anticipating problems before they even come up. I can tell you for a fact that when you are at your desk and a manager or a director or a client comes to you and has a follow-up on their original question and says, hey, what about this other avenue of inquiry? When you've already got the answer for them, that's really impactful, especially if part of that answer has recommendations for addressing that issue or solving that potential problem that might have been presented by that follow-up question.
Yeah, I bet they love you for it. Now that you've told us about your favorite part, Chris, I want to ask you about the opposite. Can you tell us about something that was the most challenging part of your work, and how did you overcome it?
Well, it may sound trivial, but some days are just a grind. I mean, you're working on some code to build a data set requiring a lot of complicated structuring, and you keep looking at the results, but they aren't lining up with what you need or expect. It's not even a debugging issue, but a structural one. So you put on your favorite grinding music of choice, put your head down, and simply plow through it. Whether by taking a break, working on something different for a while, or sometimes talking over the issue with one or more colleagues, you eventually do get through it. But that can be one of the most challenging things in this kind of work.
Yeah, I agree with putting on some music and grinding through it, definitely. So our listeners would like to know more about your background. What is your educational background and how you ended up where you are today?
Well, I have 2 master's degrees, one in mathematics and the other in business management. And I completed a predoctoral fellowship in cancer epidemiology. I actually entered the field of research, in a sense, broadly speaking, over 2 decades ago, even before the term data scientist was even on the map. So I really entered the field. My entrance was a non-event, so to speak. I've considered myself a professional analyst, and the titles have varied, the employers have changed, but the nature of my work has always held my interest and is quite consistent. When I began working for Blue Cross, I had the title of medical economics analyst. But over time, I carved out a function that suited my interests as well as the company's objectives. And ultimately, I was able to present to one of the directors this idea of data scientist. This is a title, this is a role. They are compatible with a function that exists in a lot of different companies across many industries. It's easily translated. People understand what you're talking about. And so our company developed a track for data scientists.
And how you ended up where you are today?
I started working over 25 years ago, really. I hate to date myself, but I got into research right out of school, right out of high school, essentially. And that type of work, being an analyst, being a problem solver, that's always been a strong interest of mine, and I had good talent for it. Over time, of course, the landscape changes, and one thing led to another, and many people who are data scientists sort of fall into that position by chance. If you were to ask me about some of the background of other data scientists at the company, I can tell you it's interesting because people have degrees in biochemistry, anthropology, computer science. It's quite a wide array. Nowadays, it's nice that there are educational programs that do allow people to focus in on this particular profession specifically.
So I'd like to go a little bit more into that because students often wonder what skills or education they need to join a certain career path. Can you tell me what you think are the most important hard or soft skills when working as a data scientist?
Sure. Hands down, one of the most important things that aligns with success is also the toughest to get, and that is subject matter knowledge and comprehension. If you're a fast learner and a self-starter, that's not a huge gap to impede your development. Basically, when you start working, pretend you never leave school. Always keep reading and listening and learning. Other capabilities that can directly impact your success are sound problem-solving skills, creativity, flexibility around computer programming, and written and oral communication skills. Now, I'm tentatively leaving statistics either off the table or in the background. Frankly, if you're not a statistician, there's not necessarily a huge benefit in trying to use those tools. They're more likely to be misused, and most business challenges are actually met without having some kind of degree in statistics. But definitely the computer science type skills, being comfortable with programming languages, learning about databases, those are definitely key skills and abilities to be able to move forward in data science.
So, about languages. Are there any specific software technologies or programming languages such as Tableau, Excel, SAS that you often use in your work?
Yes. We use a variety of data management reporting packages for a variety of reasons. There's no way for someone to fully prepare. Nothing is standard across businesses or industries, and it's regularly changing. The best preparation is simply using any of these enough that you're comfortable with the concepts of their designs, whether it's working with palette-style applications like Alteryx or Tableau, or the row-column structures of Microsoft Excel or SQL Server databases. In-house data storage and retrieval systems will probably never go away, but there's a constant pressure to get into the cloud, as they say, which means that for some data scientists, they may need to focus on developing skills or at least an understanding of the languages and platforms used by what I would say are traditional developers, people that might program in Python or R or other similar languages, JavaScript, etc. I honestly get lost in the jargon sometimes. I think this is one of the bifurcations in data science that can lead towards specialization, and is worth pointing out. Those who spend more time with the nuts and bolts of storing and moving data versus those who are primarily analysts, those skill sets can diverge quite a bit. So as you ask about technology needs, if you're primarily going to be a data scientist doing analytical work, learning a bit of developing some skills and learning a language like SAS or SPSS, that's going to benefit you more than learning JavaScript. If you're on the other side and you are in the cloud and using Amazon AWS, Amazon Web Services, or Google Web Services, any of those kinds of things, you're probably going to move away from things like SAS or SPSS and focus more on some of those other languages.
All right. Well, switching gears up a little bit, and I'm not sure if you can talk about this, but could you talk about a conclusion that was made from data you analyzed that you found interesting or turned out to be beneficial to BlueCross BlueShield?
Well, as you're suspecting, I'll have to refrain from any detailed answer for a number of reasons, but I will say that the work that I've done analyzing and interpreting all kinds of information, whether it was medical, financial, operational, behavioral, to name a few, that work led directly to reductions or avoidance of millions of dollars in spending, as well as improvements to patient care and outreach programs. Some examples of how those were accomplished include building better metrics or improving risk modeling, or maybe by reverse engineering a vendor's proposal and looking for weak spots and strengths and improving those in the process.
Chris, you ended up doing a predoctoral fellowship in Buffalo, and now you work in Buffalo. How did you end up in Buffalo, and why did you choose to stay here?
Well, I came to Buffalo from Rochester when I entered into the doctoral program for epidemiology at the University of Buffalo. I planned to be here just long enough to finish the program and then move on to postdoc work somewhere else. As it turned out, I decided to leave the program without defending my dissertation, and 16 years later, I'm still here. I stayed mainly because I found so many things to enjoy about Western New York.
Yeah, there really are so many things to enjoy here. Many of our listeners are younger, so as someone in a leadership role who may have been responsible for hiring or mentoring new employees, what advice would you give to someone who is interested in working as a data scientist or who has just entered this field?
Well, I think structured education can be really important and in some cases necessary. But there's no substitute for experience, so don't be afraid to experiment. If you like problem solving in dynamic and sometimes demanding environments, you will probably find this field very rewarding. And I would say read. Whether it's developments in technology, software, or subject specific, such as banking or telecom, insurance, keep educating your mind.
And finally, before we let you go, is there anything else that you would like our listeners to know that we didn't cover today?
Sure. Two things off the top of my head. Professionally, I would say never stop asking questions, and definitely ask why. Be cautious with presumptions. People can get great-looking results when they crunch numbers, but they don't actually answer the questions asked. And personally, well, know that jobs come and go, so maintaining interests and hobbies outside of your career can help you stay positive, as well as provide continuity and growth in your life. Be kind to yourself and remember that for every failure, there is a future success.
Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. And to all of our listeners, if you haven't already checked out our previous podcasts, they're available wherever you listen to podcasts. For more information about starting your career as a data scientist, go to dataanalytics.buffalostate.edu. Don't forget to subscribe so that you get notifications each time we release a new episode of Buffalo State Data Talk.